joining us today. I am Katherine Wells, Chief Inspiration Maverick here at Mavericks of Senior Living. And my co-host Francis is unable to join us today, but I am very excited to be talking with a guest who is able to actually relieve pressure on staff at senior living through something as simple as chairs. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Randy from ComforTek. Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, you bet. So Randy was someone who attended Collaboration in Aging, which happened just, oh my goodness, has it been a month? It's been almost a month ago, Collaboration in Aging. And Randy, tell us a little bit about your experience at Collaboration in Aging, and then I want you to tell our audience who you are and what you do.
I came across collaboration when I was searching, and I came across the word Mavericks, etc., in terms of saying, how can we do senior living differently? And that's what caused me to have a conversation with Francis in terms of saying, how do we end up putting it together? What I enjoyed about the sessions were that people were looking for unconventional answers to age-old problems. And just their willingness to ask the question, what role can furniture play, opened up the conversation, etc. And so at other conferences that I go to where it's same old, you don't have that as an option. But individuals that were attending it were asking that question. And it was a breath of fresh air to be able to answer the question going down that direction.
That's fantastic. And you don't think about chairs or furniture as technology, but truly it is technology. So tell us about you, your background, what you do, and how you got into this.
My name's Randy. I'm president of ComforTek Seating. I've been manufacturing chairs for the better part of 23 years. In the background, my mom saved a chair. That was the first chair that I manufactured way back in high school. Didn't realize that chairs was going to be a significant part of what I was doing. But we've manufactured chairs now for houses of worship, for hospitality, and for education for 21, 22 years. My story in terms of this webinar started some 5 years ago when my uncle asked me at Christmas time, Randy, you manufacture chairs, but why is it that I can't have a meal with my wife? I said, well, why can't you?
Wow.
And he just said, well, your aunt, my wife, has lost her mobility. I'm 87. I don't have the physical strength that I used to have. She refuses to sit in a wheelchair. And so I have no way of getting her up to a table. And so we today have defaulted to sitting in the living room. She sits in a lift chair. I give her some sort of an elevated table, and I sit on the couch using the coffee table. And he just said, Randy, what you as baby boomers have failed to recognize is that I grew up in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. And for us, our social environment was the kitchen table. Everything happened around the kitchen table. That's where we did our homework. That's where we had our meals. That's where we got lectures from dad. That's where we met our first boyfriend or girlfriend. All of it happened around the table. I just want to get back there, and I can't. And so that started me on a journey of, inspecting and designing chairs and saying, okay, how do we use chairs? What should they be doing? How do we use them? What's different today? And that sort of thing. And so that's what started us getting down, this particular road. And ultimately we came up with the one key question that became our design criteria. And that is, how does a caregiver move a seated person up to the table with ease and grace and without risk of incurring personal injury? And so that became our keystone question that allowed us to, move and go through. And some of the products that we're going to look at today were designed as a result of that statement.
What an inspiration, and what a simple question. What a simple question from your uncle. Why can't I have a meal at the table with my wife?
Again, it just recognizes, the seriousness of being today's senior. I mean, I think so many of us are saying that our social network is our cell phones and all of that particular stuff. And that's all valid, but that's not who seniors are. And so, I mean, if seniors want to go back to their previous lifestyle, what is it about the kitchen table being the heart of the home? And how can we make that experience something that's more enjoyable? And so that ended up becoming our mantra in terms of what we're putting together.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And the heart of the home being literally wherever your home is, whether you are in your home or whether you're in a senior living, the dining room in senior living is one of the most important social environments in senior living. And many senior livings also have kitchens, and people have a small kitchen table, and that is
Yep.
where they spend their time. So I know, because my father was in assisted living and my mom was in memory care. I
Yep.
know the struggles of this very issue. My dad was not very mobile. So tell us about what these chairs are. What is this technology of the chairs that's different?
The chairs that we manufacture look different because of where we started. I've been manufacturing chairs for over 20 years, and my earlier chairs, they were just chairs. I looked at what the customer was looking for. I looked at what the owner or the administrator was looking for. But here we design chairs from the perspective of the caregiver. And so ultimately, once we sat down and chatted with enough caregivers, we said, what are your essential problems when it comes to mealtime? And the issue was, well, how do we get a seated person moved up to a table? And the basic premise today is, let's bring the person to the chair. And so with that, you position the chair close to the table so that you can try to get the person seated. It involves probably stepping backwards, maybe shuffling sideways, leaning on the table, because once the person is seated, the caregiver instinctively knows that they're responsible to move them the rest of the way up to a table, and they don't have the physical strength in terms of being able to do that. And so we looked at it and we just asked a supplemental question, and that is, why don't we bring the chair to the person? What does that do in terms of using wheels and technology, et cetera? If you want to fire up that link we have to the landing page that we're looking at, Katherine, I can just walk through one particular video and we can see exactly what that amounts to.
So great. So what I'm showing here is the website, and this link will be in our show notes. So you'll be able to get to this. This is the ComforTek website that we're looking at today. Several videos on here that are really, really powerful. And I think we want to look at this one here, correct?
So just play it, Katherine, and I'll just talk it through as we're putting this together. And so again, our statement here is, how can we prevent falls by bringing the chair to the person? And so you can see that, my friend Ed has positioned himself. He's by his walker. He's stable. He feels comfortable there. So instead of forcing him to shuffle backwards and try to get up to the table, why not take the chair that has a caddy mounted underneath it, bring it up right behind him, allow him to use the arms for support, and just be seated. Step two.
That's amazing.
Step two involves the caregiver in terms of saying, how can we eliminate pushing, pulling, shoving, or twisting? Well, you can see how much effort it took for me to be able to move him from his walker right back up to his table. We lock the rear wheels and he's in place. But probably the most exciting thing for individuals is actually exiting the table, because instead of standing up again and leaning on the table and pivoting, here we bring the person directly to his walker. Once again, we'll lock the rear wheels and he can just stand up, hold on to his walker, which he feels comfortable with, and walk straight away. And so all of the shuffling, the stepping backwards, the pivoting, none of that has to occur if we put it together in that manner. And so looking at chairs in terms of saying, can we design them so that we can prevent falls, reduce injuries, and thereby create a more enjoyable mealtime routine?
Unbelievable how simple that feels to do. It seems like a very, very simple thing. And I'm watching this going, well, I have two reactions. One, boy, I wish that would have been available for my father, who did have a walker, and we struggled a lot. He tipped over the table a lot. We'd take him to restaurants. It was horrible trying to get him into the seating. But two, what a simple thing. Why hasn't somebody asked this question before? How do we take the person to the chair rather than the chair to the person?
I've been in manufacturing for 20 years, and every chair manufacturer has attempted to make what I've just shown you. But the best that the industry came up with was two casters on the front legs of the chair. Now, you're sitting in a task chair. I'm sitting in a task chair. I mean, all of these chairs roll in all directions, but we won't use these for seniors because they move prematurely, unexpectedly and they're dangerous. And so the industry said, we've got to change it. And so they came up with 2 casters on the front legs of chairs. Unfortunately, there's assistance that it helps going forward, but when you're pulling backwards, now the caregiver is expected to lift the chair and the person and pull it backwards. Ultimately, they fail because they don't have enough strength, and so they hold on to one arm of the chair, twist the chair at 90 degrees, simply so that the person can leave the table. And what that does is it pulls the chair apart and it damages your floor. And so we looked at this cantilever design and said, if we could build a substructure that holds the whole chair and add wheels onto that, now we can literally allow anybody's chair to become a chair that you can use for seniors. The video that you just watched is not my chair. That is a retrofit piece that attached onto the bottom of any chair. So anybody that's got a favorite chair, they can take this base and add it onto their chair.
So that's even more brilliant, that you don't have to buy a brand new chair. You actually can retrofit the chairs that you already have invested in. And I'm thinking about larger senior livings where or even smaller ones where they already have invested in all of these chairs, and it's quite an expense to go buy all brand new chairs. The braking system on this is incredible. It's very, very simple. And that's one of the tricks. So I know, because I'm in senior living all the time, that it's not just the caregiver who is doing this. It can often be a spouse, and the spouse might be older as well, likely is older as well, and maybe not have a lot of dexterity. So the ability for them to put the brakes on really easily or take the brakes off very easily and roll it allows that companionship to continue. And that care and love and intimacy between a spouse, a couple, is really important too, whether it's in the room or in the dining room. But we also have caregivers. We all know we have a caregiver shortage, right? We were talking about this pre-show. Huge caregiver shortage. It's one of the big issues. So how does this support the caregivers other than it makes it easier? How else does it support the caregivers?
You know, in looking at this, we literally said we're trying to reduce the physical demands of the caregiver. There's information on that particular site that literally has come to us from workers' compensation in terms of saying, well, how much effort can a person physically do safely? You know, and the number is about between 35 and 40 pounds. And so, I mean, if you recognize that you can move about 40 or 50 pounds safely, none of us know of any senior that weighs 40 or 50 pounds. Everybody weighs 150 to 210 pounds, etc. So the caregivers are at risk of injury every time they provide mealtime assistance. And so it's no wonder that so often caregivers feel more like hired muscle than they feel givers of care. And so as I've been chatting with home care agencies and senior living, they fully acknowledge that if you can reduce the physical demands of the job, it will have a positive impact on retention. If you can reduce the physical demands of the job, it'll have a positive impact on recruitment, because one of the groups of people that would like to come back to work are early retirees. They need to have an additional revenue source, but they're already a senior. And so they don't have that particular strength. And then you've got the benefit in terms of being able to reduce your overtime costs, your insurance premiums. And so there's just a number of those little facets that all in small little quotients make a big difference in terms of being able to, keep your place staffed and make sure that you've got your margin levels where you need to have them.
You're exactly right. There's a group of people that are in the retiree kind of generation that want to work and are amazing at this kind of thing. They just want to be around people and be social and provide care and have a little extra pocket money, but are unable to because of the demands. And what a gift. The other thing that I will add to that is it really is about less, when you take away the physical aspect of, my dad was 6'2" and 225 pounds.
Yep.
Like, this man, if he stood up and fell over on a caregiver, he would flatten her, right? I love my dad, but he was a big man. So given that, taking that away from the equation altogether, it's just not even a concern of the caregiver, allows that caregiver to provide more personal, true attention to the human and the person that they're caring for, rather than worrying about, is this person going to fall on me? So
Well,
I
I
think
think
it's brilliant.
I think anybody that's a caregiver, I mean, that's your personality. I mean, you just have empathy. I mean, it's a matter of compassion is what you want to put together. But if you have the words we use is a wrong balance between work and home life, and if that balance is out of scope because you're physically exhausted, you're physically fatigued, you don't have the ability of being able to do exactly what you've talked about. And yet, if we can remove, the physical demands, now their nature is such. How are you doing? I'm glad to see you. You look wonderful with that tie today. Let me assist you as we're moving you up to a table, and you can have this conversation with them. And so even that dialogue or tension that happens when you try to move a seated person up to a table. Teepa Snow is a lady who does an awful lot of instruction in the area of Alzheimer's. And
Yes.
her statement in one of her seminars was, never approach an individual from behind and never surprise them. And yet when I have to come behind you, I'm doing exactly that. And so the seated person doesn't know what's always happening, et cetera. And we sometimes are surprised that they are exasperated with us, et cetera. And I'm just saying all of those particular things we can reduce, et cetera, in terms of creating a more enjoyable mealtime routine by eliminating some of that tension.
Yes, absolutely. And everyone on the show knows that I am a gadget girl, and that does not just mean technology in the software sense. That means these kinds of things, anything that makes life easier. And this is a tremendous step forward, Randy. I applaud you. I know Francis, who is an owner operator of the largest residential memory care home setting in the state of Colorado, is very excited about your product and willing to try it. He was bummed he couldn't be here today. So I'm excited for you guys as you continue that conversation. And I get to go to his homes quite a lot, so I get to see it in action as well. I think this is a very, I want to say it's a simple idea. The implementation, the whole industry of furniture making has tried to do this, and we're unable to do it. It took you, with creativity, thinking outside the box, looking at it from a completely different perspective, to solve the problem. And while it looks simple to the rest of us to put the chair on top of this, I know as a technologist, it's hard to make something simple. It's much harder to make something simple than it is to make it complex. So I applaud you.
I thank you for your observations. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, you bet. All right, Randy. So for those who have listened to this and are interested in learning more, how can they reach you?
You've got the website on the line. It's ComforTek.com. You'll find a telephone number. You'll find my email address there. We're also going to give you a link to the video landing page, which was ComforTek.com/video. And so you'll have access to that one. There you'll be able to literally watch more videos in terms of looking at how can you implement that within your particular care community. We'd be happy to entertain the dialogue with you. I know that when I talk to my staff, probably the question that surfaces more than anything else is, Randy, we just like things to go back to the way they were before Dad had this diagnosis or that diagnosis, et cetera. We know that's not going to be the case, but there is that sense of being able to say, if you can make my job as a caregiver easier, then I will have the ability of being able to provide care for a longer period of time. And I hope that would be the sense that you would hear when you get to chat with us and we give you a phone call.
I think that's amazing. And I see the impact of allowing people to potentially live at home longer. Francis and I are both big advocates for live where you have the supports around you that you need. So that's sometimes at home, sometimes that's in senior living, but I can see how this could be really helpful in allowing people to be more independent, living at home a little bit longer and preserving their capital, because senior living is expensive.
Very much so.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing, Randy. Thank you so much for bringing your innovation to our show and for being a Maverick. We appreciate you on the show, and we'll send out all of the show notes to our audience. We'll make sure links are in here. And for our audience, until next week, please go out, pay it forward, think about what you can be doing differently use Randy as an inspiration to say, how can I take this problem I'm facing and just flip it around, completely flip it around and think about it differently. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.